Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Yonta Pravishya Mama Vachamimaam Suptam Sanjeevayat Shakti Dharaswadhamnam Anyaushya Hasta Charana Shravanatvagadin Pranam Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Pranam Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Samacharana Sarojam Sandra Nilambuddhabam Jagana Nihita Pani Mandanam Mandananam Taruna Tulasimala Kandharam Kanjanetram Sadaya Dhavalahasam Vitthalam Chintayami Vitthalam Chintayami 170. Now I regarded fish as my guru. Please listen to the quality which I learned from the fish, which dies only by his hunger for tasty food.
जिह्वयाति प्रमाथिन्या जनो रसविमोहितः मृत्युमृच्छत्य सद्बुद्धिः मीनस्तु बडिशैर्यथा.
Meaning of the verse: men become extremely mad to taste good things because the tongue is very naughty. Man of bad intellect, really a stupid man, meets death just like the fish caught on bait. 171. There are three kinds of calamities falling upon a man. One is death due to hoarding of money. The second is moral detriment due to promiscuity with women. And the third is death due to uncontrolled eating. 172. He whose tongue is uncontrolled definitely becomes prey to disaster. The tongue leads us towards innumerable disasters. The tongue indulgent in heavy eating is very dangerous. 173. When the fish, due to its liking of the bait, its tongue being attracted to it, bites the bait, the hook hidden in it pierces the mouth of the fish, and the fish suffers great pain. 174. Sweet juice taste seems attractive to the sense, but there are in it hidden hooks of diseases, and those who enjoy the juices with attachment become prey to diseases. 175. The fish on the hook is neither alive nor dead. Similarly, a man suffering from some illness is undergoing great pain. 176. How can a man who is a slave to his palate have discrimination in his thinking? In the indulgence, he is dying 100 deaths in his inner life. 177. Millions of births are required to be taken in satisfying the sense of taste. You may question this statement, O king. I shall tell you why I say so. 178. The freshness and energy of the organs are dependent on the tongue. When the tongue receives the juices of the food and when they reach the organs through the systems, then the organs become very active. 179. When organs get more power, they are sure to be bold and adventurous, thereby leading the man towards disaster. Unless the tongue is conquered, the miseries of worldly life will never be overcome. 180. Without proper intake of food, the body becomes weak. And if you take more than enough food, the organism itself becomes uncontrollable. Therefore, if you know how to control the tongue, all sufferings due to overindulgence disappear.
इन्द्रियाणि जयन्त्याशु निराहारामनीषिणः वर्जयित्वा तु रसनं तन्निरन्नस्य वर्धते.
Meaning of the verse: through fasting, wise men can solely control their senses, except the tongue, which becomes more powerful in the case of the person who is observing fast. 181. The seekers may be able to control other senses by going without food, but the tongue becomes more untamed. It cannot be conquered in this way. 182. The senses have their power only through food. They become weak by fasting. but the tongue becomes more powerful by hunger. It does not become weak.
तावज्जितेन्द्रियो न स्यात् विजितान्येन्द्रियः पुमान् न जयेद्रसनं यावत् जितं सर्वं जिते रसे.
Meaning of the verse: one may have controlled all other senses, but unless one conquers the sense of taste, one cannot be said to have gained self-control. With sense of taste in control, all other senses are controlled. 183. It is said that by fasting, the senses are controlled, but that is not true. As soon as food is taken, the senses become strong again and start to do their duties. 184. It is futile to call a man to be a man of subdued senses unless he has actually subdued his tongue. When it is controlled, then only the mundane objects become ineffective. 185. One can say that the tongue has been controlled when the force of the objects is equal to the force of the sense organs, and there is equality, a state of balance. 186. There is indeed a sense of interest, which is the cause of attraction for the senses, and one who is inwardly interested in himself and has not to run after fulfilling that interest can really control his tongue. 187. The victory procession of a man who has conquered his tongue reaches the ultimate state of Sayujya Mukti, final liberation, and only he can have the bliss of the highest happiness.
पिङ्गलानामवेश्यासीत् विदेहनगरे पुरा तस्यामे शिक्षितं किञ्चित् तन्निबोध नृपनन्दन.
Meaning of the verse: O the prince, please listen to what I learned from a prostitute by name Pingala, who once lived in the city of Videha. 188. Avaduta said, O prince, I have regarded a prostitute as my guru. Please listen, O the clever one, what I learned from her. 189. In the past, in the city of Videha, a prostitute by name Pingala used to reside. By suffering the pangs of having hope and losing hope, she became acutely desireless.
सा स्वैरिण्येकदा कान्तं सङ्केत उपनेष्यति अभूत्काले बहिर्द्वारि बिभ्रतीरूपमुत्तमम्.
Meaning of the verse: one night that prostitute decorated her body, and in order to take her paramour in the pleasure house, she sat at the door waiting for a customer. 190. She was an immoral woman. In the evening, she stood in the door of her house with all the beauty makeup and various ornaments, with furtive glances towards the street. 191. She was very beautiful and she had decorated herself. She was waiting for having pleasure with a handsome young man who might come along.
मार्ग आगच्छतो वीक्ष्य पुरुषान् पुरुषर्षभ तान् शुल्कदान् वित्तवतः कान्तान् मेनेऽर्थकामुका.
Meaning of the verse: desirous of earning money, she looked at various men walking on the street, thinking that those who were rich would come to enjoy her company and give her money. 192. She was waiting for a handsome young man who would be rich and presentable and who would satisfy her with physical pleasure as well as money. 193. Oh, the great man Yadu. Whenever any man came along, she tried to attract him to come to her by amorous glances and peculiar movements of her body.
आगतेष्वपयातेषु सा सङ्केतोपजीविनी अप्यन्यो वित्तवान् कोऽपि मामुपैष्यति भूरिदः.
Meaning of the verse: seeing the men passing by her door, she, living by her solicitations, began to have hope that some other rich man would come to her and would give her a good sum of money. 194. She used to give hints to some prospective customer, say solicitously, "Oh, sir, come here, have some articles of pleasure," and make furtive movements of the body, invitingly and courtingly. 195. Putting all her sincere feelings in her speech and actions, she made passes at the passerby, But persons who were walking, being concerned about their own business, did not pay attention to her. 196. She ridiculed those who went further, not even looking at her, saying, "Oh, how weak was this man, how ugly was this man," etc. 197. She began to think, "Now some rich man will come. He will give me money and also satisfaction."
एवं दुराशयाध्वस्तनिद्राद्वार्यवलम्बति निर्गच्छन्ति प्रविशति निशीथं समपद्यत.
Meaning of the verse: waiting at the door, thus frustrated and having lost her sleep, she kept going inside and coming outside her house till midnight. 198. She was unhappy because her hopes were shattered. She sat at the door, her mind being upset, and she, not having sleep, went on waiting for a customer. 199. She would go in the house and feeling that somebody is at the door, would immediately come out, and seeing nobody, would again turn to go inside. Thus it was midnight. 200. The expectations about having a good customer were futile. The usual time was over. The entire city was asleep because it was deep midnight. Now Pingala was very depressed.
तस्या वित्ताशया शुष्यत् वक्त्राया दीनचेतसः निर्वेदः परमो जज्ञे चिन्ता हेतु सुखावहः.
Meaning of the verse: her mouth was parched. She felt dejected because she did not get any money. But ultimately, her sense of discrimination arose, caused by the loss of all hope and frustration. And she said to herself, 201. The moisture of hope was dried up, and her mouth was parched. Her face looked withered. There was very great anguish. 202. She did not get any amount of money. She became very dejected in her mind. As she was thus depressed due to loss of hope, this very condition became the cause of her real happiness.
तस्या निर्विण्णचित्ताया गीतं शृणु यथा मम निर्वेदाशापाशानां पुरुषस्य यथा ह्यसिः न ह्यङ्गाजात निर्वेदः देहबन्धं जिहासति.
Meaning of the verse: now hear from me the song she sang to herself in her utter disappointment. For people who have hope, dispassion is the sword to cut the noose of hope. Unless the man has this dispassion, his bondage to his body cannot be given up by him. 203. See how she, who was engrossed in the hope of sensual enjoyments, became suddenly fed up with everything. So dispassion is the sword which cuts down hope. 204. Being awakened to the reality of ephemeral pleasure, Pingala was aware of her frustration and began to sing to herself a dispassionate song. O king, I will convey to you what she sang. Please listen carefully. 205. O king, O sea of wisdom, he who has no desirelessness in his character becomes harassed by the chain of births and deaths. 206. He who does not repent, who has no discrimination, is like a housemaid given as an offering in a marriage ceremony from bride's party to the bridegroom's party. But here he serves the worldly life. He is tied by the rope of hope. 207. He has in his feet the shackles of concept of I am body. He is day and night operating the mill of sense objects. 208. He is lazily reclining under the quill of old age. The eyes of his discernment are blind. He does not see the path of right behavior. 209. Such people go astray. Their mind becomes berserk, and they fall in the dark and deep well of ignorance from which they do not find way out. 210. Actually, they have no will to get out of that ignorance. Suddenly, they are bitten by the scorpio of greed. The scorpion of greed, the sting of which is utterly unbearable. 211. Then criticism and ugly gossip give lot of outward as well as inner agony and pains. Loss of money burns him like fire, and pangs of hatred overpower him. 212. He becomes agitated by pride. and he has inner urge and provocation of lust and greed. Still, he continues to lie on the bed of his house and continues to crush the grains of sense objects. 213. Thus, those poor souls become great sufferers of unending sorrow and go down and down at the lowest depth of evolution, being caught in the jail of their body. 214. See how the courtesan, the harlot, who is otherwise indulging in the most deplorable occupation, was awakened to the state of ascetic thoughts, and by sheer force of apathy, she broke up the bondage of her body. 215. She talked to herself such words as would snap at the rope binding her to her body, rope of attachment. O the great emperor, please listen how the quality of desirelessness arose in her mind.
पिङ्गलोवाच अहो मे मोहविततिं पश्यता विजितात्मनः या कान्तादसतः कामं कामये येन बालिशा.
Meaning of the verse, Pingala said to herself, Oh, see the extent of my attachment because I have no self control. See how I childishly desired satisfaction of my false body from anyone who came to love me. 216. I have in vain expanded my field of attachments. I cannot measure the vastness of my stupidity. 217. My heart has no control. My feelings are not regularized. My illusions only increased while I consider the passion of immoral people as something entertaining. 218. If a woman needs a man, she should love the only man who is nearest to her, who is dwelling as God within. But it was my folly that I had intercourse with immoral persons.
तन्तं समीपे रमणं रतिप्रदं वित्तप्रदं नित्यमिमं विहाय अकामदं दुःखभयादिशोक मोहप्रदं तुच्छमहं भजे ज्ञा.
Meaning of the verse, ignorant as I am, I welcomed persons who could not satisfy even my physical urges, who gave me suffering, created fear, sorrow, and left the nearest God who is always there and who gives the highest satisfaction and is the real giver of plenty. 219. God is the most saintly person, and if one loves him, all the passions are subdued, but I forgot him. 220. He destroys the desires and gives boundless happiness of permanent nature, and it is he who provides us with the consciousness of very high level. 221. He offers all the glory and even his own status to a person who is in love with him. He gives contentment to the males as well as females because he is Atman within them. He is the only beloved of all. 222. See how stupid I am. I left such a loving partner and always eagerly waited for ordinary men who were not capable enough to satisfy me. 223. How can those poor people who cannot satisfy their own passions ever make me free from desire? In the company of such men, I have been deceived and I have had only suffering. 224. In fact, they were not able to make me happy. On the contrary, they became agents of pain for me, and from them I got fear, sorrow, and disease.
अहो मयात्मा परितापितो वृथा साङ्केतवृत्त्यातिविगर्ह्य वार्तया स्त्रैणान्नराद्यार्थतृशोऽनुशोच्यात् प्रीतेन वित्तं व्रतिमात्मनेच्छति.
Meaning of the verse, Lo, how uselessly have I afflicted my soul by leading the life of a courtesan, living by such a highly deplorable profession. I expected money and satisfaction by selling my body to a man who was lustful, greedy, and a lamentable person. 225. I was expecting pleasure from a paramour. It was really my stupidity. I have in vain earned troubles. I have had sorrow by my own doing. 226. Persons who are slaves to women are deplorable. Persons who visit a prostitute are more so. Even more sinners are those who are very misers. And I was soliciting company of such men. 227. The dirtiest desires would be afraid to touch me. Oh my God, I was living by trading my sex. Surely debauchery is the most heinous thing. 228. In it, one does not ask what is the caste of a man who is willing to give some amount. What is more shameful than this? Cursed is my life. 229. Even my body is offered to any man with such a beggar like attitude. What can be said about the signs and characteristics of that customer? He is having no good qualities at all. 230. He cannot give sufficient money because he is a miser. He cannot give me sexual satisfaction. As for love, that is not at all there. And having once visited and having left me, he never comes again. 231. From such people, only suffering is earned when pleasure is expected. Let it be burnt. One should not see his face. I feel like vomiting when I think of them. 232. So when I see the whole condition of such an immoral person, I feel like vomiting due to disgust. Enough, enough with such company. My mind is totally disgusted.
यतस्थिभिर्निमित्तवंशवंशस्थूणम् त्वचारोमनखैः पिनद्धम् क्षरन्नवद्वारमगारमेतत् विण्मूत्रपूर्णम् मधुपेति कान्या.
Meaning of the verse: what women expect me would find enjoyment through a paramour's body, which is like a house of which the frame is of the bones, covered with skin, hair, and nails, which is having urine and excreta in it, and has 9 openings through which constantly flows foul matter. 233. This body of man is really a dirty house. The roof and pillars of this house are only bones. There are bullies of bones on 2 sides. It is upholstered by wet skin, which is its leather. 234. There are nails of hair fixed everywhere, and nails are used to close the ends and extremities with the fingers and the toes. 235. The frame, the structure, is solidly built by using bones, flesh, and skin, and there are fixed and moving joints, and tongue made of red soft flesh is kept hanging in the mouth to taste every article of food. 236. In order that wind should go in and come out, there are openings of nose and lower orifice. On the hanging top dome, there are grown plants of long hair. 237. The inner space is tightly tied by 9 big ropes of veins, and in the receptors kept for the very purpose, every now and then, urine and remnants of undigested food are temporarily received and stored. 238. What an obnoxious smell is there in the open space inside this house. 9 openings throughout, oozing of these dirty excreta day and night. 239. The gutters of organs flowing with dirty things are seen by the person, and he himself gets bored with his body. They are not cleansed enough, though frequently washed with water. 240. Even describing these things makes me sick, and alas, I was in vain confused enough to be enticed by such bodies of men. Discrimination was not at all used by me. 241. I was embracing again and again such package of bones and flesh and urine and excreta. To hell with that stupidity. It's a wonder that I was not disgusted.
विदेहानां पुरे ह्यस्मिन् अहमेकैव मूढधीः याम्यमिच्छत्य सत्यस्मात् आत्मदात् काममच्युतात्.
Meaning of the verse: I am the only foolish and wicked person in the city of Videhas, because I expected satisfaction from anybody else than the immortal Lord, who bestows his own self on the devotee. 242. I am the only stupid woman born in the city of King Janaka. Leaving the Lord in my heart, I had relation with a lowly man. 243. One does not know how many such dirty men I had enjoyed. Unless and until love for God has arisen in my heart, no real happiness will be there. 244. He is the nearest living in my heart. He is unfallible. He gives utter contentment with actual contact, and he gives his own status to his devotees. 245. The devotee never loses the state of bliss which that Lord gives. I forgot that dweller of the innermost and went for a person who did not satisfy me. 246. The man who does not satisfy my passion is like a dead man. He will only give me pain. But see my behavior. My mind became attracted to such men. What a fool I was. 247. Now gone is that attachment. Now I know the value of imperishable, eternal happiness, which increases every moment by indulgence.
सुहृत्प्रेष्ठतमो नाथ आत्मा चायं शरीरिणां तं विक्रीयात्मनैवाहं रमेनेन यथा रमा.
Meaning of the verse: He is the friend, the most beloved Lord, and the Atman of all embodied beings. To him shall I offer myself as a prize, and I find enjoyment in him, like Lakshmi, who enjoys unity with him. 248. He who is the nearest relative, my real beloved, my happiness, my love, my true lover, unfallible God, who is the inner Atman and is omnipresent, is my husband. 249. Him only I will purchase for my lifetime by giving myself. Him in exchange, and dropping all my stupid amorous approaches, I will embrace him in all my loving ecstasy. 250. Goddess Lakshmi has become a maid servant, nursing and massaging his feet. But I will be his united being, one with him in all forms, in all locations, in all respects, and at all life, and at all times.
यत्प्रियन्ते व्यभजन् कामा ये कामदानराः आद्यन्तवन्तो भार्याया देवा वा कालविद्रुता.
Meaning of the verse: To what extent have mortal men and even gods, subject to the ravages of time, been able to give satisfying pleasure or enjoyment to their wives? 251. If I give up my beloved Lord who dwells in my heart and wed to other useless men, I find that they are all afraid by dualities in life and are terrorized by time as death. 252. What satisfaction can they give to women when they themselves are afraid? All beings are being swallowed by time. I do not see anybody who will give me real happiness. 253. So this is the condition of men. If I think of marrying the king of gods, Indra himself, they are also temporary. In one Manvantara, 14 Indras are born and dead. 254. So gods and men are always in trouble and afraid of their own death. What satisfaction can they give to their wives? 255. I am really fortunate that at this time in the midnight, I experienced total disgust and desirelessness. No doubt this is itself a boon given by the Lord, the husband of Lakshmi.
नूनं मे भगवान् प्रीतः विष्णुः केनापि कर्मणा निर्वेदोऽयं दुराशाया यन्मे जातः सुखावहः.
Meaning of the verse: Really, Lord Vishnu has been pleased with me for some action of mine, as in my heart, full of vicious hopes, the feeling of disgust for this world has been engendered, which will lead me to real happiness. 256. If I consider my karma in the present life, it is quite worst, but somehow the Supreme Person, the Lord, has been pleased with me. 257. I have no merit from the last birth. Really, this has happened because of the grace of the kind Janardana, the Lord, who is famous as the upholder of the fallen. 258. To think that I, who is of a low character, having bad desires, one who sells sex, a debaucherous woman, should have such pessimistic thoughts of ascetic nature. Actually, I must say that Lord Vishnu has, by certain miracle, been pleased.
Ariyo, I think we can pause. I tried to complete till there, but it's okay. It's already 10:15 past in Singapore, so we can. Please give your thoughts, Ajayji.
Yeah, I'll just take a look 1 minute.
Yes, please. It's a lot reading today.
So that first thing that line where he says there are three things that or a man that attachments. One is to
Yes,
hoarding, then the second one is to the tongue, and the third one I forget is
the woman, money, woman, and the tongue.
tongue. Yeah. So the main so initially he talks about the tongue, how we cannot, other senses we can control, but the tongue is something that we like to, uh, desire things, whatever we can eat. We cannot control the tongue. So that is one thing he brings out, that one who can control the tongue can control most of the senses. Then the story of the Spingala is also very interesting, because through this there is a lesson that even the most debaucherous woman can realize that senses do not give ultimate satisfaction, realize. And in that moment she remembers that the indweller closest to her, the Lord, is there, and she was spending time outside and through to get to get sensual satisfaction, but it was all within her itself. And that realization, that story, that whole story was very nicely told actually by this.
Yes, yes. And that's the toughest thing. No, see, over here, we from Pingala's viewpoint, we can see this story. And Pingala, though being a prostitute, how can that turnover happen? We can see, like, means it's like the one who is completely helpless or seen the worst part of the life can also rise from there. This is one part of story. But the other, I was remembering Valmiki ji. So when he was Ratnakar, he was into again worst type of his profession that he could do. And from there he can become the greatest Kavi, and he's the Adya Kavi. No other Kavi is like him. He's the best. He's the realized. So these two examples, like, is enough inspiration for us that the acts that we do, from whatever if we are realized, from there also we can rise up and not postpone it to some more births. It's possible to achieve whatever we are seeking at that. Beautiful reading. Anybody else has any thoughts? Everybody is with their cameras off. Doesn't matter. Over to you, Sajiv ji. You can do your closing prayers, and tomorrow we can continue till we complete the chapter.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।
Hari Om. Thank you, Sajiv ji. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Let's
Thank
meet
you.
tomorrow to complete the chapter. Hari Om. Thank you. Lata ji, you rest well.